And we return for another Lakers Fast Break podcast. This is Gerald Glassford. Thanks so much again for joining me. It is great to continue our NBA team previews, and our next stop is with the current world champions indeed. It is, of course, the Oklahoma City Thunder. And here to talk about the Oklahoma City Thunder, the OKC Thunder indeed, it is, of course, someone who really covers the team on a regular basis. Want to go ahead and check out the great work that he is doing today, right there for you. Absolutely starts off with the Suave report and goes into all the stuff that he does for the New Century Times and more. Right there for you. It is Calif Poncy. Calif, great to have you here, focusing on your time writing for the OKC Thunder. Things are riding very high for the OKC Thunder right now.
They really are, and thanks for having me. It's a real honor to be on here. But yeah, it's can't really complain too much. It's been a pretty boring off season, but when it's coming off a championship, I don't know that that's the worst thing in the world. So I'm excited to kind of, I guess, just reassess where we're at headed into this next season, and so I'm ready to dive on in whenever you are.
Absolutely. So let's do it right now. Obviously, winning the title, going through two really very hard-fought series against Indiana in the finals, and I'm also as well want to mention the Denver Nuggets series as well. Had a little bit easier times of it in the other parts of the series, other series, including against Minnesota. They just found ways to win. I know that it from the surface, it looked like, again, attention to detail on the defensive end, the steals, the commitment to getting to the line, certain aspects of their game, the constant depth you could throw out that at people with 10, 11, 12 quality players you could put in that mix. I think it sometimes goes without saying as far as the great job that has been done in building this team. Sam Presti, again, on our show in previous episodes, we have complimented him. There's probably been no better way or no better person that has structured a team in recent memory. I mean, you could go back to the Lakers, how they structured it during the 80s, Celtics, how they structured theirs and got advantages with the draft and through trades, and both teams have really done it, in the past, great jobs themselves. But in recent memory, maybe you could say the Golden State Warriors of the previous decade, but I just don't think I've seen a job by a front office where not only did you create a team that was capable of winning now, because you got to remember, in the bubble, they were a playoff team. Mm-hmm. And then they did a total rebuild. And so within 5 years of that, they not only rebuilt, they built a team with athleticism, with youth, with depth, with a lot of versatility that they have, and also the fact they've got a treasure trove of draft choices that they can still throw at teams in case something goes wrong. Tell us, you obviously have covered them for quite some time, but the job that Presti has done, you could say SGA is the MVP, but I think the MVP of this team is actually Sam Presti.
Yeah, I tend to agree, just because, the thing with Shea is they make that trade that obviously now has had all these ramifications that are still going on with now this Kawhi thing, and there's this thing that never seems to stop, right? And that's how they get Shea. And honestly, I think Presti has come out and said, when we traded for Shea, we did not think we were getting arguably the second best player in the world. That's not what we thought was happening there, but they did. And he is the key. He's the straw that stirs the drink. But really, everything else, you look around, Chet at 2 in a draft where he was not the solidified choice. It was the 3. It was Paulo, Jabari, and Chet. And they could have gone any of those directions. And I think they went in the one that I would argue Paulo is probably the best overall player of those 3 right now. But Chet is by far the best fit and he's exactly what OKC wants. Then later in that draft, they get Jalen Williams at 12 and all this stuff.
After they spent 3 draft choices and gave that to New York to pick someone ahead, Osman Dieng, who didn't pan out.
No. And so he doesn't throw 100. No one does, but he is about as close as it gets. And Then the next year they get Cason Wallace, and you get Dort as an undrafted free agent, and Isaiah Joe off the scrap heap, and all these guys. Like every decision that he could have made right, he did. I don't think during this, and I think really a lot of it, and I've talked to other people on the beat and my friends about this, is I think he really did a good job of learning from the first go around with KD and Russ, because in that time they have those two, and really because whatever the reasons were, salary cap, draft picks already being out the door, they could not really improve those teams. And if they did, it had to be someone like Andre Roberson. It's like, okay, we'll take this guy in the second round who can be a rotation player, but now you have a guy who just cannot even be on the court on offense. Yeah. And this time they did a good job, I think, of preserving that cap space and going and they plugged the hole of a Hartenstein, and they have been able to do these jobs of plugging holes that they had that they were not able to do the first time. And I think that's really been the biggest growth I've seen from Presti, because Presti as a drafter, I don't think anyone's ever really questioned his drafting acumen. He can clearly draft with really the best of all time, but it's been about the other stuff. And I think what finally got the Thunder as an organization over the heap was that finally willingness and ability to bring in outside guys, the Hartensteins and the Carusos and guys like that he just hadn't really made moves like that in the past. And obviously, Caruso especially, that's what really, he was one of the biggest reasons they won the championship. As you guys know very well in LA, the kind of impact he can have on a winning team.
Absolutely. And you see the success, and they're set up for success for a long time to come. But one of the things I did want to say, and I have said it on the show, was with OKC Thunder, yes, they are deep. They have so many attributes, so many ways they can defeat you and beat you. But one of the things that actually concerns me that I saw put itself out there during the course of the playoffs is the way they run their offense. It is their half-court offense, if it comes to it, if they are defeated, if somebody does come along and beat them and they're healthy, it's going to be because their half-court offense is a little stagnant, because it's either Jalen Williams one way or SGA another to facilitate the entire offense. It is a little bit predictable in that sense, but because you have so much depth, so many quality players that can do so many things on the defensive end, or you also have SGA and Jalen Williams getting to the line at such a high rate, it seems to overcome any lack of versatility in the half-court offense. And Houston, one of the major contenders in the West, I believe suffered from this too, which is why I really like the Kevin Durant deal that they had. Tell me your thoughts on that as far as the half-court offense, because I know that's been a little bit of a sticking point. I've seen message boards and I've seen fan sites on OKC in recent past, before they won the championship, address this. Is it still a concern with these guys, with this team going forward?
It is. And I have always been a big proponent. I've written it before trade deadlines. I still believe they really need to go and get one more or even two more like elite shooters, because of all the things this team has, you have these just pack of wolves on defense. You can sick on anybody and they can really figure it out. And then Chet wasn't even healthy, and he's arguably the second best rim protector in the league. I think Wembanyama kind of has that locked down for the next decade, but I'd say he has the chance there, a real argument for second when he's healthy. The one thing they don't really have is when a team can slow down Shea, is they don't necessarily have a way to get other baskets all the time. And you really saw Jalen Williams grow into that last year. And I think especially when we learned after the playoffs about how significant his wrist injury was, in that he was still able to perform at the way he was. I think that is really a cause for a lot of optimism in terms of like, well, if Shea doesn't have it, which is very rare in its own case, then you'll have Jalen Williams to be able to fill that void. But before he got traded to Denver, I just think Cam Johnson would have fit like a glove with this team if they would have been able to figure something like that out. Obviously, that's easier said than done with all the cap stuff they have coming up and all that, but he's who I thought really would have fit perfectly, that clearly was available for a price that they can afford, about any price with all the draft picks they have. But I think they could have done that and it would have made a big difference. But I also think that, like, at this point, as ugly as it looks sometimes and as bad as it can be, Lou Dort is a good shooter. And that feels weird to even say as someone who's followed the team for 4 or 5 years, but he is, and he proved it in the finals. And Obviously, I mean, he really, one of the underrated moments I don't really see the discourse outside of Thunder fans online, but is he really saved their season in Game 5 against Denver when he hit those 3 straight threes. The season was on the brink. They were going to probably fall down in the series at home to Denver, and he made 3 straight threes late in the game that really swung it in the Thunder's direction. So I think he's just going to probably level out it from a 38 to 41% three-point shooter. And then I think the biggest thing is, can Chet Holmgren improve as a shooter and become more consistent? Because he's really a good shooter in spurts, but it's always inconsistent. And then Cason Wallace is the next one. And I think he's really kind of the undervalued key to how great the Thunder can be long-term. Because if he can really go up a level with his ball handling and playmaking ability, and especially like be consistent with that outside shot, then they really are not going to have a ton of weaknesses that you can exploit. Because I think Shea maybe has a quarter level to go up just if he gets a little bit more consistent with that 3-point shot, which we've seen in spurts. I think Jalen Williams, the sky's the limit. We don't really know exactly what he's going to be at. Same with Chet Holmgren. Yeah. So I think it's going to be about the consistency of the shooting around those guys this year and going forward that's really going to unlock how stagnant or non-stagnant that offense is going to be in the half court.
I'll tell you what, though, again, remarking on Sam Presti, he has prepared himself as best you can for the long term for this team. And getting those big three to sign extensions like you have right now is great for the long term. But as you know, as far as the salary cap, unless you're the Clippers, is going to be concerned as far as how you imagine it. Oop, did I say that out loud? I'm so sorry. Unless you guys, unless you uncover the fact that Calif Poncy finds out that there's a separate company involved in OKC. Oh, I've never heard of this company before.
I don't know if there's any. I don't know if there's any cap shaving going on in OKC, but who knows? I guess we'll figure it out.
That's true. But as a smaller market team, though, as this team gets more expensive, again, this year, there's still a clear run, a clear pathway for them to go ahead and repeat as champions. But when it comes to, down the road, as those extensions kick in, again, you'll have some guys coming up for extension, the Cason Wallaces of the world, the Alex Caruso. Do you afford to keep him because you signed him to an extension last year? What if Nikola Topic pops as a player now that he's back and able to contribute? Hartenstein, do you keep him as a staying force, or does his contract get too expensive? Those are the questions that they're going to have to make and navigate through. They do have a lot of assets that they can utilize in trades to get players in that will accommodate that, but how much of a concern is it to your base in regards to what that future might be as those contracts start to get a little bit more expensive for the big three?
I think relative to kind of what the panic level is to most teams around the league who are title contenders that are going to be expensive, I think the Thunder are about as low as you can get, just because like you see the smaller deals they have, like Aaron Wiggins, I think is under contract until 2028, 29. And his contract is actually descending, and he makes under $10 million a year and throughout the rest of his contract. And we saw last year in the finals, he can be a key part of a finals team and really play well in spurts. So, and then you got like, if Topic is good, they have him under contractual control for 3 more seasons, things like that, where I think that every team is going to kind of get unfortunately affected by this second apron thing. I understand why the league put it into place to stop teams, like the Warriors and like the Clippers from really just having this kind of unfair, huge pocket spending advantage over a team like OKC or Indiana or whatever, But I think it's going to have a really, I'm not breaking any news here. I think it's just really going to have a lot of negative impacts around the league. But I think in terms of the Thunder, the concern is pretty low just because you have those 3 now under contract. 2 of Shea rightfully said, I'm sure Presti was like, hey, look at what Brunson did. You can take a little bit less money. And Shea was like, no, I'm not doing that. Please give me my Supermax. And they gave it to him, and he deserves it, and that's fine. But, just getting the little bit less of the cap escalators for Jalen Williams and Chet, I think will end up probably being able to save them an end of the bench guy in the long run. And I would say it will finally start to rear its head this year. I think this is the last year of at least one of Hartenstein and Caruso, just because it's not really feasible after this year. I would assume, I think Hartenstein would be the more likely one to go out the door, but I also think that with how good Cason Wallace looks like he can be, it makes Caruso a little bit more disposable. But I say that, and they would not even have made it out of the second round last year without Alex Caruso. So uh, it's hard to say because Presti has pulled rabbits out of hats before, and you never know. But I think that for those waiting for it to impact the Thunder, we'll start to see that this year with them losing one of Hartenstein and Caruso, if not both, if they want to or need to.
Once again, I'm on with Calif Poncy. Please go ahead and check out the great work that he's doing today for the New Century Press, and also as well, make sure you check out what he's doing for the Suave Report as well. I want to ask you this, again, as I told you before we went on the air, talked about how I have a certain way, a basic number of questions that I ask as far as, how the team did, how did it off season, et cetera, et cetera. Then what do you think if everything goes right, what do you think your chances are? Well, I already know what your answer is. If I said, if everything goes right, it's pretty obvious from that point. So I want to turn it into a little bit different direction. Obviously they are the favorite. I'm here in Vegas. They are the favorite to go ahead and repeat. Obviously, we talked about how much they are built, not only for the now, but for the long term as well. Who do you see as a contender this season that might possibly have the formula, the elixir, to go ahead and maybe change the little bit of difference as far as that one game that cost Denver, that one game that cost Indiana? Who do you think might be able to go ahead and on the horizon, either conference per se, look to be someone that you might be a little bit concerned about if you're an OKC fan? Or is it just the fact that, okay, they matured, this was their growing step, they took that step, they passed the test, and now it's going to be a little bit clearer run from this point forward?
So in the West, it is for sure Denver. Denver, as being as objective as I can, Denver is a terrifying opposition because they really did almost win that series last year. And then you have not Aaron Gordon. He got hurt too, but Jamal Murray coming back still not quite 100% all the time from that knee injury. I'm assuming next year he'll probably be back fully in full swing, I would hope. Aaron Gordon hurts his hamstring and still plays in that game 7 and really honestly played shockingly well for as injured as he clearly was, but still was hurt, and it was just kind of a shell of what he was a huge problem in that series when he was healthy. But with Denver specifically, I also think that kind of the same can be said for the other way, where, and the same with the Pacers, is those game 1 collapses from OKC that really would have, if they would have not won the championship last year, it would have been those games that were their doom. It would have been the way everyone told you, they're still too young. They haven't been in the moment enough yet. Teams have to go through more growing pains than this. And I think that now that the Thunder have been in some of those really hard moments at home, on the road, not just Shea showing up in those huge moments. You have Jalen Williams with the 40 ball in the finals with a very injured wrist. I think that the maturity is going to be, I think this is not exactly what your question was, but, and you might be asking it later, might not, but I honestly think that the Thunder should be a good 1 or 2 steps better next season than they were last season, which is insane because they won 68 games, were one of the best defenses of the modern era, but they were not healthy during the regular season. Chet Holmgren has come out and said how he did not feel himself quite yet back in the playoffs, and he thinks that he's really going to be able to get back there. And we saw before he got hurt, he was playing at an all-NBA, all-star type level before his injury against Golden State. So I think the Thunder should be better. But I'm sorry, I went off path there.
No, all good.
And so Denver is the one in the West that really scares me because the acquisitions they made, if you just give Jokic anything, he can beat anyone, no matter how good you are. So that's very scary. The Rockets intrigue me more than I think I really see them as a legitimate threat yet. I think Amen Thompson is a terrifying guy to have to go against for the league in general going forward, just with especially he's a really good matchup for teams like Thunder and the Lakers, who are going to be really led by a guy who has the ball at that guard position, who's long, but not Amen Thompson long. They don't make him like Amen Thompson. So so they're interesting. Obviously the addition of Kevin Durant is a huge deal. That's going to really, I think, dramatically impact if they're a championship contender or not, will be how he looks. And if he can stay healthy, he struggled with that the last few years. And out East, I really, just as a basketball fan, would have loved to see a Pacers rematch, but obviously with how horrible that Game 7 went for Tyrese Halliburton, just heartbreaking for just the basketball fan in me. And I'm from Iowa, so I've loved Halliburton since he was in college. So that really was disheartening to see, and they're unfortunately off the table for next year most likely. But same with Boston, and those would have been the two teams that I would have said if Thunder play them in the finals, would really give them a run for their money. And now I just think the way New York plays is too easy for a team like the way OKC specifically can play defense and hound guys. I think it really is not a good matchup for New York. And those are kind of the three, Philly is so hypothetical. I don't even want to discuss Philly. It's not even worth anyone's time. So it's if Philly can have Joel Embiid stay healthy, which to this point has not really been possible for him. Unfortunately, he's such a great talent, but I don't see it. That's something I need to see happen probably twice in a row before I can even say I'll believe it for one season. So I would say those three are the three that I think could beat OKC in a series without injuries playing a part. And I wouldn't be shocked or not shocked. Like the Lakers, obviously Luka beat the Thunder a couple years ago in the playoffs. The Lakers would be a really fun series, but I think the Thunder would have a pretty substantial edge in that one. So the Nuggets, the Rockets, and the Knicks are the three I think would be really interesting for OKC.
So where do you see the Lakers in all this? You said that they would have a significant advantage over the Lakers. In the regular season last season, the Lakers actually played the OKC Thunder in OKC really well. Actually, it would have taken two straight in OKC had Luka kept his temper. But he didn't. What a shock! But it is still great to have him here. I mean, obviously, skinny Luka now in shape. One of the picks for MVP along with Shea. You say that they can handle him now. Is there anything that you see them doing possibly to make them even more competitive against, say, OKC?
So Luka is just this terrifying offensive entity that is this real huge challenge and puzzle to be solved by himself, right? And that's no matter who you are, he's that special. If he does keep his weight off, if he does stay in shape, then that makes him even scarier than he already was. We'll see if that lasts all season. Obviously, we've heard stuff like this before in Dallas. Now we haven't seen it like we have over in Eurobasket. He now looks awesome on court. It's not just he's skinny in some pictures, whatever. We've seen that before. But the thing that really interests me about the Lakers, and this is not in terms of really if they can beat the Thunder, is just this is not going to come as a shock to any Lakers fans, but the whole LeBron thing is just very interesting to me as just a fan of basketball, because everyone I think is probably overstating it. I think LeBron's probably going to play out his contract there and he'll either retire, or I feel like the Lakers are kind of positioning themselves to maybe say, well, you can come back, but understand that Luka's the guy now. It's not really you anymore, as they should. But that I think is going to be interesting to just see how LeBron kind of reacts to that this season, because he's never been there before. And other than that, I like the guy they drafted out of Arkansas, Thiero, but he's still, he's not going to obviously make a huge difference in a playoff series as a rookie. Austin Reeves interests me too with his contract situation that's coming up. So I think the Lakers are a really intriguing team. I'm not a huge DeAndre Ayton guy. The talent is undeniable. He's such an offensive force when he's locked in, and the occasion he is, and maybe he will be this year, wanting to kind of set himself up for the future. But I just think for them to beat the Thunder, I just think it would have to be an outside acquisition. I just don't see how internally they can match the level. I very few can, but I just, with the Thunder's overwhelming physicality on defense, what they're going to allow them to do to anyone, but especially Luka in the playoffs. We saw it, and that's why OKC had a real chance. And despite it was only 6, the foul in the corner, we're fouling a corner away, and PJ Washington, he's a good player, but I mean, that was unlike anything I've ever seen to this day, what he was playing like in that second round for Dallas. So I just think that it would have to be some unforeseen event or an injury. I just don't think the Lakers, as currently constructed, can reach that level that OKC's at. And maybe I'll be wrong. Luka's a level of player where he can beat anyone, similar to Jokic. But I just think my guess would be I just don't think they can quite reach that level without a major outside acquisition, probably post LeBron.
And I can't say I blame you, because you're again, one of the biggest assets of your team is the versatility and who you can throw on a LeBron or a Luka at any given point. If they start to go ahead and go off or get to the line a lot, et cetera, you can throw physical defenders, 3, 4, possibly even 5 different defenders at either one of those guys that might in some way throw them off. So I can understand the confidence. Again, we talked about how deep and defensive minded your team is. And absolutely, I cannot argue with that as far as from that standpoint. So we'll see. Again, like you said, Luka has had, success where others have not against OKC Thunder. But you're right. When there's so many different bodies you can throw at an individual player, like a Jokic, like a Luka, like a Durant, or like a Anthony Edwards, anybody in that top realm as far as to play, Kawhi, if they get that far with the Clippers. So it's interesting. Again, the versatility on this team is one of its biggest assets, and I think it's obviously one of the reasons why they should remain as one of the favorites to go back to back.
Yeah, that versatility was really what every NBA fan and every Thunder fan saw last year when they made those 2 acquisitions, because they really before this last season, the way it flipped, it was right. Like, I'm not disagreeing with kind of how the general fan reacted to it, but just how the year before when they lost to Dallas without, just with the one center, and it was Chet, who is very not a physical force really in any way outside of at the rim, as a rim protector. But the way that it went from this OKC team is going to be weak, and it's not a very physically imposing team. It's a team that you can kind of play bully ball against, to last year when it became, and I'm not even disagreeing with these people, a lot of like, how do they play? How do the officials let them play like this? Like, it's so overwhelmingly physical in a league that is not an overwhelmingly physical league most of the time. So I just think that when they added those 2 guys, or Presti or Dagnall, whoever was really the spearhead of adding specifically Hartenstein and Caruso, 2 guys who are so physical in their different ways about going about it, but they are very physical. I think that was really strategic, where they said, okay, we have Dort, we have Wallace, we have already some of these guys who, in Jalen Williams emerging into this all world level defender that I didn't know was in him at that point. But yeah, they're just such a physically dominant team despite not necessarily being the biggest in terms of just stature, but they're so physically overpowering on the perimeter specifically. I just think it's going to be really hard for any guard-led team to really do too much. And that's why Indiana was such a unique challenge, because the way they played was so just like, it was not always Halliburton. And I think that really is why they gave OKC such a challenge, because when you want to play Super Bowl centric, which for better or worse is how a team like the Lakers or Minnesota or a New York in the finals are going to play, it just really allows OKC to kind of, almost like a defensive end in football, just like pin their ears back and be like, okay, we're just going to swarm this guy with the ball and make him make hard decisions and make him complain and make him just beat him up. And we have 18 fouls to go through between Dort, Caruso, and Case and Wallace, and we foul every play, so they're never going to call him. And all this stuff that's just, I think, really makes them a hard mountain to climb for any guard-centric team.
Great conversation. And again, a lot of what you're saying, I don't know how many people can argue with you, because they are on top of the world right now. And again, depth, treasure trove of assets. And again, very strong chance of repeating this season. I don't think anyone can doubt that. But before we head on out, I'm hoping the fact that you will not get bored to death writing the same things across this season. I have a feeling you won't. I have a feeling you'll find many things to go ahead and discuss when it comes to the OKC Thunder. So, in doing so, where can people find all your great work at, and how can they follow you to find out how they can get a hold of what you're doing on a regular basis?
Yeah, so for my OKC stuff, I post all of it on Twitter at or X, sorry, at a Poncy Calif, last name, first name, caps for both the start of both, and that's all. All my Thunder stuff is with the Suave Report. I have a lot of freedom there to kind of. My boss Adam is awesome. He's done so much for me. He got me to media day last year when I was still in college. I covered summer league last year. I'm flying to OKC here soon for their media day, which they have not announced yet. So whenever that is, I'm going to go down there for that and cover it again this year. And so that's at the Suave Report. I do a lot of really good stuff there. I think he takes a lot of really awesome pictures and writes some really good stuff of his own. And then I did just graduate. I have my first job out of college here now up with the New Century Press in Northwest Iowa. I live in the Sioux Falls, South Dakota area. But I'm mostly just covering high school stuff up here now. So doing this NBA stuff, I love it. I do it here as much as I can, between my full-time job and trying to do it. And so New Century Press, and for all your NBA stuff, the Suave Report is where you can find all my work at. So I hope to have a couple cool things coming here soon.
Absolutely. And make sure you go ahead and follow him on the Twitter. I like to say Twitter. I'm sorry, I'm old like that. Poncy Calif on Twitter. And don't worry about, again, what you're doing as far as your main job, starting with this. One of our frequent guests and one of our frequent favorite guests is Alfred. His name is Alfred. He is just a tremendous reporter like you, and he does a great job. And he had to take a position with a small outlet, a small newspaper, because that's where you start. That's where you go from. So congratulations on your success in college, and you're translating it now, and it starts. And I have a feeling before too long, when you get big, when ABC or Fox Sports or somebody goes in and hits you up, hopefully you remember a little tiny molecule of a show or a channel like me, so you can come back. But I definitely want to have you on during the season as well to go ahead and give us updates on the Thunder as well, if you'd like.
Yeah, anytime. I could never really find anyone to podcast with in college about the NBA. Everyone was too focused on other stuff. So I love it. Anytime you want to have me on, message me. Anytime I can be on, I will be. So I would love that. And thanks again for having me on. It was a blast. And hopefully our team's playing the playoffs. I really right before Luka got traded from Dallas, they played OKC maybe a month before or so, before his injury. And I wrote a whole game feature about how this is kind of Luka Shea, Dallas OKC is going to be this new kind of this generation's rivalry. And then everything changed. So I hope that can continue here in LA. In LA OKC, it's such different. It would be such a fun layered series. So hopefully we can play in the playoffs, but we'll definitely be playing in the regular season. And I'm excited for those games too. So.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it as well. And if you ever start your own show on a regular basis talking about the NBA, I've been known to babble. I'm just a kind of rumor out there. So, if you need guests or regular people, I like to pay it back as far as the stuff I do on the regular basis with the Lakers Fast Break. I always like to pay it back and make myself available. It's same in kind. But definitely want to bring you back onto the show. Once again, Calif Poncy, please go ahead, starting with his Twitter, Poncy Calif, and then, of course, his regular job right there. Go ahead and make sure you go ahead and check out what he's doing right there today with the Suave Report covering the OKC Thunder and his regular job with the New Century Press as well. Calif, it's been sensational talking to you, and I look forward, again, to more conversations between you and I right here at the Lakers Fast Break Podcast.